it is important to be aware of one's surroundings. This is especially true when it comes to medical conditions. When individuals and organizations are professionally trained in medical awareness, they can save lives. Type 1 diabetes is a prevalent disease in children that are across the world. Type 1 diabetes awareness is important in schools in regard to giving medical care, catering to the needs of diabetics, and the emotional aspect of the students themselves. Diabetes awareness should be of utmost importance within the public education system so diabetics and faculty can receive care needed from many individuals. As the world stands now, only nurses and maybe a friend or two of a student who has diabetes may know anything regarding diabetes care. If a student claims his or her blood sugar is higher than the acceptable range of blood sugars, one would often not know how to respond. Diabetes awareness is important for schools to possess so they can provide the needed care to diabetes students. Students and teachers alike will be able to notice a change in behavior in a friend or acquaintance and advise them to act accordingly. Understanding the signs and symptoms of pre-diagnosis diabetes is just as important as understanding the signs and symptoms of post-diagnosis diabetes. The most common diagnosis age for type 1 diabetic children comes between the ages 4 to 7 and 10 to 12. This indicates that most type 1 diabetics are diagnosed during their grade school years. Many diabetics find themselves under the heavy influence of diabetic ketoacidosis, which forces the body to rapidly burn fats for energy instead of using the sugars which come in foods when they are diagnosed. In this state, many diabetics suffer a severe loss of injury, leaving them in a scenario where death is not only possible, but in some cases likely. If school facilitators were aware of the signs and symptoms of future diabetics, they could easily alert the school medical professionals or parents of the child, and perhaps even prevent the health collapse or even death of a child. Awareness training across the public schooling system for facilitators will be very time-consuming, but very well worth it when a child is able to live a full, happy, healthy life because of that training. Another important reason to promote the awareness of diabetes in public schools is to allow teachers to easily cater to the needs of diabetics. When a diabetic has high or low blood sugar, which is also referred to as hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia, it affects the body in many ways. It can cause hunger, thirst, lightheadedness, confusion, nausea, zoning out, constant needs to use the restroom, among other symptoms. Under protected rights from the United States government, students cannot be required to take tests and complete assignments under these conditions and must be allowed to retake the assessment at any time when their blood sugar is in a healthy range. While these rights are provided to students, they are not always honored. Diabetics and caretakers are required to complete lengthy forms and provide documentation yearly to schools to receive permission for these accommodations. Students then must go to each of their teachers and notify them of their condition, symptoms, and rights. And even following that, teachers can often forget these rights and unfairly expect a student to complete an assignment while they are physically unable. This awareness of diabetes could inspire teachers to interact with their diabetic students more as well and learn about what diabetes can do to affect the mental abilities and mental capacity of their students in these conditions. Finally, diabetic awareness is important among fellow students as well as teachers. After being diagnosed with diabetes, many children feel as if they're alone in the world. They feel different from all their schoolmates. They can battle anxiety, depression. When individuals hear the word diabetes, their mind often goes to a mind of criticism and humor, especially with children. Instead of seeing the diabetic as just a normal child, they begin to start making jokes about the diabetic, whether they're directed at the student or just directed at diabetes itself. Children can very easily go from the smart kid or the funny kid to the kid who ate too many cookies or the kid who can't come to my birthday party because there's going to be sugar. It does not have to be this way. If school children were educated about diabetes, especially the differences between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, diabetic children would not be excluded or mocked as nearly as much as they are in present day. Many children hide their diabetes, feeling as if they would instantly become an outcast if any of their friends found out. Type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes have little in common. And this information could also encourage children to be open to learn about the conditions of the different types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is caused by an autoimmune attack from the body, and it is of no fault to the person in the least. Type 2 diabetes can be caused in a multitude of ways. The most commonly known way is through unhealthy diet and exercise, but many diagnoses come from genetics and other outlying factors. This level of diabetes awareness in schools would encourage children to make friends with diabetics and treat them just as they would any other person. Diabetics would also find peace and comfort in their diabetes and see it as a symbol of toughness and valor instead of a cause for anxiety, depression, and shame. I've lived with type 1 diabetes for 6 years now. I've experienced firsthand the struggles of making friends as a diabetic and being labeled as different. If I could go back in time and change one aspect about the time I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I'd want to find a person that I could talk to teach me how to make friends as a diabetic and how to be, normal. My friends at the time, whenever I was diagnosed, were very supportive of me because they knew me as, Race, the normal kid. But as time moved on, it became increasingly harder for me to make friends. When I was constantly giving myself blood sugar checks and taking shots, I began being labeled as different, and people kind of wondered what was wrong with me in such a way. Luckily, I was able to get in touch with my local Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation chapter, and they were able to support me and encourage me, and they got me in touch with the Texas Lions Camp. This opened the door for me to find friends that were just like me, that whenever I arrived and found that everyone else had type 1 diabetes, I was awestruck and I could not believe it. I attended the camp for 5 years until I recently aged out, unfortunately. During one of those years, I won the Best Camper Award for my session, and also in my journey as a Boy Scout, I completed my Eagle Scout service project for the Texas Lions Camp. The Lions Clubs and the Texas Lions Camp have given so much to me, I wanted to give back. I feel very strongly that schools need to pursue diabetes awareness education. This education would help schools create a more comfortable and accepting atmosphere for diabetics, as well as pave the way for students to meet and accept future diabetics outside of school. Thank you for your time.